And we're using lineage translations. There are several, actually. And, we have a few that we've been using. Swami Shivananda's, and then some of his disciples, Chinmayananda, Satchidananda, Venkatesananda. And of course, the teaching is one. And when we come to the commentaries, there are many different ways to put light on it. So, this is what we see. Okay, let's begin with Gita Dhyanam. Kirtaneshwar Das, if you'd like to join us, there's of course, in India or Sanskrit study, we would be chanting Gita Dhyanam in Sanskrit, and here there's a lovely English translation that we use, and it's the Lushi. You've got it. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So we continue with Swami Satchidananda commentary here as we pick this up, and he picks up from the same place. Yesterday we were discussing these shlokas, 28 and 29. Because you recognize the one God equally present in every being, you naturally avoid harming any living creature, including yourself, and in this way you attain the supreme goal. The one who sees reality perceives that all actions are done solely by Prakriti, and that Atman is not the doer. And of course, still, Prakriti, we're talking about the body of the Absolute, that which is conditioned with gunas, and we're about to step into the Yoga of the Three Gunas, Chapter 14, where the Lord teaches us about the nature of nature. Here we're differentiating between nature and Purusha, or the highest at the seat. And here sharing that, again, that the actions are being done within nature, by nature. Karma, of course, is operating within nature, by nature. And Krishna, that highest consciousness, is not affected by nature, and this has been a recurring theme, yes? In the same way that the I at the seat is not affected by the desires and thoughts and such, although seems to be, because it seems to get pulled hither and thither according to the desires. Yes, it seems to, but there is the way out of it, which is to identify and recognize that, as the Lord says, I am the Purusha, I am the knower of the field in every field. So where do you find the Lord? Where I is. You find the Lord at the center. So we hear the name Vasudeva and pointing to the Lord of the heart at the center of the heart. It's an interesting concept, by the way, because interesting concept. We talk about heart, and we, in normal parlance, we imagine the emotions to be arising from the heart. This is when you talk with people in the world, and people talk about the heart, we imagine it to be the center of the emotions. But in self-study, along with the aid of scripture, we see that the emotions are actually reactive. And so they're subconscious. They're not really at the center of you. What's at the center of the being is this unique capability to rationate, to ask questions, to make choices, to determine. And that's really at the center of the person or personal existence. Vivek, conscious mind. So, but where is this intellect seated, and whose intellect is it? This is where you come back to Krishna, you come back to the Lord here. Where do I find the Lord? I find the Lord to be right where I am. Is it so?
Yes.
Yeah, I find the Lord to be right where I am. And the way I relate to the Lord is through the use of the intellect, because I have the ability through this intellect to turn my awareness out, yes, and play with all of these objects and desire and go after and gain and all of this. I have the ability to do this, and also with this same power, I have the ability to turn it within, to the heart, to the cave of the heart, as the Christians would say, to the cave of the heart. And who is the cave of the heart? The cave of the heart is the Lord, the Absolute. Oh.
So I wrote a poem.
Yes, dear.
Tonight. I would like to share.
Okay, please. Beautiful, please.
So, I just hear scurrying right now. The heart.
Oh.
The heart can ache to think you are far away. What a blessing to see you're in every mirror and window reflection. Now I laugh. I laugh with joy when you kiss me, when you hug me, when you talk to me, when you listen to me. I smell you everywhere, even if in the otherless air. What did I do to deserve you? Please, I only opened my eyes and there you were. Then I closed my eyes and there you were again. I call you and you call for me. Or a paradox. It's like when I close the windows so I can put AC on. What a mystery we are. Breathe. Silence. Do you hear that? It's the empty loud sound of everything you cannot hear, but is here. So my dear, let's just be.
Jai. 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 Just that. Jai. Oh. So, yesterday we had with Swamiji's discourse on these shlokas, the one who perceives reality, who sees reality, perceives that all actions are done solely by prakriti, by the nature, and the Atman is not the doer. And he discussed practically how to use that knowledge when it's not completely integrated knowledge, how to use it. Self-talk. You remember Yemi? Dear Yemi, who had come out and visited us from Australia?
Oh.
Yeah, we talked a few days ago, briefly. She used the term self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? Yeah. So, and what Swamiji was relating to yesterday was us talking to mind, talking to the mind, guiding the mind. And we had some discussion about mechanics, and it's not about mechanics, it's just very practical. That we're in the sea of consciousness, and there is lower and higher. There is within this sea that which will lift you up, and there is within this sea that which will take you down. Yes? And that mysteriously, but practically, we each have the ability to relate both ways. We have the ability to grasp the lifeline that Krishna is handing, and we have the ability also to train this mind, this subconscious mind. Is it so?
Yes.
Yeah, through the choices that we make. So, and not just the choices that we make, but the inner conversations that we have. Huh? When you're having difficulty with yourself, don't you talk to yourself? Don't you give yourself a good talking to? Yeah. So here, using the tools and techniques, then you have the ability, the capacity to see arisings, tendencies before they've completely fructified, yes, before they've completely hardened, and correct them on the spot. Huh? Yeah, that's what Swamiji was talking about yesterday. You see, this is the practical aspect of yoga. Yoga is practical. Yoga is life. And a life of yoga is a life in the light, a life coming to the light, a life learning to dwell in the light, a life becoming dedicated to the light. And all of the work is inner, of course. Yeah, all of the work we're doing, it's inner work. And we say alignment. In asanas, we're working on alignment, right? And so here we say alignment. Aligning with what? Aligning with Krishna, bringing this entire instrument into alignment with the light, with the Lord, with the Absolute. And it's a beautiful process, Uma Devi. It's a beautiful process of being able to see the power that we have, the ability to call in the light into all of the little crevices. All of the places that there are aspects of us that have been trying to hide from the light. Shine it there. Of course, there are inner confrontations, but Swamiji brought a lightness to this, and that's so helpful, is to have a lightness to this inner process of correction and alignment. But for goodness sakes, when you know that there's an aspect or a voice which, if you follow it, will lead you to darkness, don't follow it. Don't go there.
Just don't do it.
And we learn a lot of techniques. Use whichever one you have to use. And when you do go there, forgive yourself after, but resolve again. Oh dear.
What if you're not sure?
Well, there are easy ways to check. For one, are you being guided towards something you want for yourself? You stay away. You don't go there. Are you being guided towards something which, although it might be painful, it might bring fear, which is a way of serving and supporting the highest potential within you and within others? Then you go there. So look to the motive, and that will help you have clarity about it.
It's hard because the mind is so tricky sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard, and then you just slow down and you ask and you bring more light into the situation, and you chant your mantra more.
Breathe.
You breathe. You meditate a little bit. You go into nature, and clarity will come. Usually, I'll tell you a little story. There are resistance mechanisms set up inside, and so it's not about blaming them, but they exist. However, they are all ready and able to come to the light as we go through this process and as the doubts are transcended. You can't just hide the doubts away because they fester. So as they arise, they're needing to be dealt with, but you want to deal with them lovingly and fully. And then when you've resolved the doubt, then you stay firm in that place. You don't, when it starts to arise again, you say, wait a second, we've already been here. We already know the answer. Come on. When you know, and when you've resolved it, then just like shadows, ghosts, old tapes will arise. But when you've already resolved it, then you say, we already did this. We already did this. Do you remember? Like this is self-talk. Do you remember? Come on, we've been there. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and we were completely sure. So get on board. So like this, using the tools. Peace Pilgrim calls it receptive silence. You ask the question that you're dealing with. You ask which is preferable, which is better, which is more beneficial, dear Lord, for service of you and for me in terms of being able to be with you. Which is better, which is more propitious. Looking to the motive. So here's the little story, and I've shared it. Some know it. I ask and the question will be answered somehow. And recognizing that sometimes you'll get no answer, but that's actually an answer. It doesn't mean you didn't get an answer, it means you did get an answer. Generally speaking, the answers are answers that you don't really want to hear. Until you get with the program. And now we're talking about the habitual nature. And the little story that I share is when I was just starting to find my way a little bit, just crawling. And I was very much holding on to all of my old life pleasures that I thought would, at some point I had thought those would somehow lead me out of the darkness, but of course they don't. And I heard about diet. I heard that I was supposed to have a vegetarian diet. And I kept hearing it, and I kept denying it. Now, denying, that's a conscious mind function, that's intellect. So Krishna, of course, is actually the enabler, but still in conscious mind, we have the ability to close doors. And so I kept hearing it. I would hear it outside, why to have a vegetarian diet. And so one day I said, okay, I'm going to ask, and I just asked inside, should I stop eating meat? And it was really scary how fast the answer came. And it was a resonating yes, like that. And I looked around. I was in a restaurant. I was in an Indian restaurant when I asked the question. I looked around. Where did that come from? And so I stopped. That's what I mean. The habitual nature didn't want to hear that answer at all. The ego stuff, it doesn't want to hear any of this yoga stuff. Not until it gets it. Not until it gets with the program. And so a day or two later, the question ran around within, in the inner world, should I ask about fish too? And as far as I could tell, I said, no. We're not asking about that. And so I went a few months until one day I asked. And the reason I was refusing to ask is I knew what the answer would be. So we intentionally choose the darkness too, because it's comfortable. It's not comfortable, but it's comfortable.
Familiar.
It's familiar. It's very uncomfortable. It's the opposite of comfortable, really. This is this discussion sometimes Yashoda and I had when she first came, because she was very much in the Western psychology approach, which is, ego is the comfort zone, and we laughed about it because the yogis there in Yashoda too. We say, but ego is the source of discomfort. Right? It's the source of discord and disintegration. This voice saying me first, and I get this, and I deserve that, and I'm going to get me some, and all of this. This voice is the source of disintegration. And so we laughed and we said, yeah, what we think of and relate to as the comfort zone is actually the cause of our discontent. And so you ask is the thing. and the clarity will come. Receptive silence, just really, okay. Oh. Look to the motive. And recognize that if an answer comes and you don't like it, that's probably the one. Just so we know. Yeah, Hari, sorry. You know, we're just joking.
Swami it just came like.
Sorry?
Just exactly what you're talking about is exactly a question that I've been asking and asking and asking and not wanting to hear the answer because I knew what it was. I have to follow. Have to. I have to.
Your story's so perfect.
And, and it's very hard to do what we need to do, but then you get momentum in it as you're making these choices, and you bring in the sacred, you bring in the light, you bring in Krishna, you think of Krishna, you chant the holy names. As you do more and more, then something comes, something opens up. So, and then as the putrid within us, that which has been left to mold and rot because we didn't have the wherewithal to face it. All of these habituated desires and dislikes and judgments and all of the stuff that had hardened. You know what I mean? That it hardened. And now we say, absolutely, I will not do this. It's putrid. It's putrid. It's sick.
Turns to a rock.
Yeah, because it's like without knowing. But then as the light begins to pervade all of this and enliven it and enlighten it.
And that's the question.
Yeah. Right. The question I didn't want to ask.
Right. I had to contemplate. Go deep.
Oh. Okay, so continuing in this vein, 32. Just as the all-pervasive akasha is never tainted because it is so subtle, so is Atman present throughout the body of every creature, forever untouched and immaculate. And here Swamiji adds this commentary. He says, the akasha means atmosphere, not the lower level above New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, but the outer space above that. It's not tainted or polluted, even though many particles roam about in it. Pollution can only reach up to a certain level. This is what we're dealing with in this mind field. So you can throw any junk into real space and it will orbit, but it will not taint the space. In the same way, the real self is not tainted by anything. It's always pure, but temporarily looks tainted. If you bring a rose near a crystal, the crystal will look rosy. Bring a blue flower, and the crystal assumes the blue color. The crystal doesn't really turn blue because of the proximity of your happy mind. You assume that that happiness and say, I'm happy. When the mind becomes unhappy, you assume that color and say, I'm terribly sad. Step away a little from the disturbed mind and you're fine again. Take the flower away from the crystal and it's colorless and pure again. So he says, always assert that purity. Know that you are that. I'm not the body, not the mind, immortal self I am. Anytime you feel that you're getting near your mind when it's dirty, assert yourself. No, I'm not the mind. It's the mind that's dirty. It is the mind that's crying, the mind that's restless. I just am. The minute you detach yourself, you will just laugh at that mind. Foolish mind, again and again, I tell you not to be naughty, not to do all these things, but you don't listen, and now you come crying to me. Try this technique. You will see how happy you can be. Then nobody can make you unhappy. What else do you need in this world? Just that Nityananda, that eternal bliss. So in the Bhakti tradition, we say just Krishna. That's all you need. That's all you need. You don't need something else. You don't need something else. What else do you need other than the relationship with your own highest self? What else do you need? Right? So this is why, Swami Premananda is a jokester. I told you, joke Vasishta. For, 40 some years now, he's been teaching joke Vasishta, yoga Vasishta, joke Vasishta. People will talk about the world, and sometimes he'll crack up and he'll start laughing. He says, "There is no world. There's only God." So he says the sign of awakening or transcending this identification with this mortal frame. He says the more that you are awake, the more you're able to laugh at yourself. So this is a sign of it that he shares. Is the more you're able to laugh at yourself. What does that mean? The more you're able to laugh at your own mind and the habits and all the stuff it comes up with. Oh my God. You want what? You think what? Really? Just look at it. All of the adventures it's carried you off to. All of the things that it said would do it. And it's not really evil in the way that we think of as evil. It's not that its intentions were terrible. It's simply that it didn't know, and then what's the ego sense do? I know. And this is what we've been dealing with.
I had a quick one of those yesterday where I was in this very peaceful state. I was reading the book, the Thought Power book.
Yes, good.
And this thought just came out of nowhere of something that is generally brings unpleasant feelings. And it just got, the beginning, it starts talking about how fast thoughts travel. And the second the thought entered, I just felt my gut and everything just turned.
Yes.
And then I was just like, started laughing. I was like, wow, that was fast.
And you saw that. Very good. And you saw that there was a thought.
Yeah.
That did it.
Yeah.
Slow down enough.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay, so we'll close. Just as one sun, 33, just as one sun lights this whole world, Arjuna, so does the Lord of the fields, God, Krishna, enlighten all creation. If you have uncovered the eye of wisdom and can distinguish between the field and its knower, between the path of absolute freedom and the bondage of nature's illusions, then you have attained the Supreme. One more time. This is a summary of the discourse, the discussion. If you have uncovered the eye of wisdom, so there's these words are pregnant. These words are very full. If you've uncovered, so that means it exists already, and you've found it covered up by what?
The veil.
The veil. And attachment to the veil as my own self. So if you've uncovered the eye of wisdom and can distinguish between the field and its knower, between the path of absolute freedom and the bondage of nature's illusions, then you have attained the Supreme. Thus ends the 13th discourse of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of yoga, entitled Yoga and the Field, Yoga of the Field and its Knower. Hari Om Tat Sat. Any other comments or questions? Oh, yes.
You like to mention that we hear from the heart. You ask the question, should I stop eating meat?
Yes.
And in my experience, we have that. Sometimes we ask, but sometimes the mind is so covered it can tell us a lie. We're not hearing the heart. So
Yes.
it's my understanding that the power of sadhana and the power of approaching the sadhus, the guru, and the shastra by reading, by associating, by surrendering ourselves to those.
Yes.
That helps that Krishna within our heart manifests and talks with us externally.
Yes.
But when we surrender, we get that message outside, and we begin to train our mind to see through those eyes of guru, sadhu, and shastra.
Yes.
And when we see through those eyes, then all of a sudden it becomes very easy to hear those answers within the heart.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you. It's as if the Lord of the heart manifests outside for us, for the seeker, the one who really wants to hear. Yes, and gives us the opportunity to follow what appears to be outside in order to find what's inside. So, yes, beautiful. Thank you. It's a beautiful summary. It was so well.
It
Yes.
reminds me of knowledge that ask a question, and sometimes it's not just internal, but you'll get it from all these different sources to ratify or to strengthen the resolve.
Yes, it's true. Still, all of these sources are associated with mind, so it's best, as Kirtaneshwara Dasa suggests, it's best to have a reliable source.
Oh,
Shastra.
correct knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shastra.
Yeah.
Shastra, the feet of the Guru, like that.
Scripture.
Yeah.
The wise.
It helps us to learn how to listen inside.
Yeah, comes back to the inside.
Yes.
So like one, I guess, example of me having a hard time interpreting the messages might be when I came to you and I asked you about writing that letter.
Yes.
So I'd been thinking, I was like, I want to, write her a letter. I was thinking, I should drop my ego and do that. And then at the same time, another friend's like, oh yeah, like I'm starting to write letters now. And then I have another friend who's like, man, we should start writing letters together. And then like 4 different things. And then I look down and I see her. I look down at that book that was on the table and it's like From Sinner to Saint. And I'm like, oh, that's me. And then I looked at the ball and I was like, oh my God, that's her name right there. And so I'm like, this is her size. I have to do this even though I don't want to, really. And then I realized that, or upon thinking about it after speaking to you and a few others, like perhaps those are tests of the Maya. And when I felt, looked inward, that I didn't get a good feeling out of the idea of doing it at all. Like I guess then there was the confusion of sometimes it's a challenge, like you do things that you don't want to do. So it was like,
Why is always a good question. Having a place, an external place that you can trust, that you can actually trust, that is a benefactor, that's needful. Because as we see, there's a lot of masquerading. Okay, let's close. Page 174. But why will lead you to, and if I is in it, then you drop it. If when you ask the question, why do I want to do this? Because I need to rectify, I need to be seen properly, I need to be understood, any of those kind of stuff, run away. Run back to the feet of the Lord.
We have that service, surrender to service, then
Yes.
you have to always differentiate.
Oh, who am I serving? Okay.